Welcome, everybody, to the Authentic as Fuck podcast. My name is Sun. I am a marketer, I'm a storytelling coach, and in this podcast, I help members of our community coach them through storytelling, branding, marketing, things of that sort. Today, we have Mitzi. Hi, Mitzi.
Hi, Son.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's start with Mitzi, kind of where you're from and your story, your background, and then we'll go into kind of questions.
Okay. Yeah. I'm from Pennsylvania, from the Poconos. I grew up in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, small town girl. And when I left Stroudsburg, I went to college to be a teacher. My first job as a teacher was in inner city Philadelphia, in West Philly, and it was quite a shock. And I ended up teaching in all kinds of different environments, from different urban environments, different rural environments, and everything in between for the next several decades, eventually becoming a college professor, which has been my profession for the last 25 years or so. And so just last year, I made a decision to start a podcast of my own and leave education and academia so that I could reach a bigger audience than just a select amount of students that were in a classroom at a given time, that I wanted to really reach a whole much bigger audience. And so I'm kind of at the beginning of this journey of being an entrepreneur. And that's why I
What do
would
you
like
teach?
to.
What did you teach?
I teach writing, composition, literature, everything associated with English composition, essay writing, and that sort of thing.
Got it. Okay. And where are you like venturing off to now? Like what's the
Right. So now I have a podcast called the Blessings Podcast, which is where I ask people to tell me their life stories so that we can figure out what the patterns and themes of their lives are that have contributed to maybe issues that they're having, or just experiences, why they've happened. What is it about them and about their life that contributes to who they are today? And just sort of brings home the importance of taking a look at your story, taking a look at yourself so that you can understand yourself, and then learn the lessons that you're supposed to learn, count the blessings that you're supposed to count, and then be better because of it.
Got it. Yeah, my sister is a professor also, and she wants to kind of do, like, I think when you're teaching in a university, there's a lot of like limitations, right? Like
yes,
like you have to teach their curriculums. And
well, I had a lot of freedom with my curriculum. I designed my own curriculum. But when COVID came along, it changed a lot of things, and it kind of illuminated some of the negative side of that for me. And then I ended up with a little bit of a health issue. Oh, the negative sides? Well, I think during COVID, it was the inability to be in person was a huge thing. A lot of students were unable to succeed as well online. And as you know from doing your Sunday service, I would teach a class and I would have 50 black boxes on my Zoom screen because they didn't want to turn on their cameras. And, it's very difficult. That it doesn't really breed success, that environment. When they're not engaged, I'm not able to see them. I don't have the visual feedback. So that was a big thing. The online learning forced on kids who didn't want to learn online. I think for people who want that, it works really well because they know how to interact, they know how to engage. But when it's the only option, there were a lot of people that just weren't able to thrive in that environment. So that was kind of a big thing. That was probably one of the biggest. I felt like it was difficult.
You're not teaching anymore? You stopped teaching?
I've stopped teaching this semester and last semester for the first time in my life.
Oh, really?
I haven't been teaching.
Were you were you a tenure professor or?
No. I was always a part-time professor. I never went for it to be a full-time professor because I was raising 3 kids at the time as well. And so I made the decision that I was going to be a full-time mother and
got it. Okay.
professor.
So there's some personal
Yes.
like choices too. Like,
yes.
yeah, my sister quit she taught at Wheaton College. She quit. She was on tenure track. She quit last year because of like office politics, bureaucracy,
Oh
and things
yeah.
like that.
That's
Um,
definitely another thing that I when I had an experience that I had in my curriculum, a Bob Dylan song, and I used the lyrics from this Bob Dylan song, and you know that Bob Dylan won the Pulitzer Prize for literature.
yeah,
And I used that song for a few semesters, but there's a word in the song that was kind of objectionable. And I decided to pull that from my curriculum because I didn't want to be that professor who went viral on Twitter for having a song that had a objectionable word in it. And so I thought at that moment, like, this is not right. If I have to start watching what I say and watching what I do because I'm afraid of potential consequences, this isn't
yeah.
aligned anymore with what I believe should be the purpose of higher
So many
education.
people don't realize that. Like self censorship is where you start to you start to like start killing a little bit of yourself all the way to a point where you're completely lost and you have no idea who the authentic like you is. Right.
Yeah.
And
So if you get to the point where you can notice that before it's happened too much, that's gotten too deep, and you can cut yourself off from it, which is kind of that was another
yeah,
very big contributing factor to why
got it,
I'm not teaching right now.
got it. Yeah, that's awesome. Like as soon as you were talking about like West Philadelphia, I'm like, oh, like the Fresh Prince. Like
Yeah.
and then I remember like at night in my agency in New York, we used to always go to Poconos like every summer for camping.
Yep.
So I know that area. So yeah, let's talk about first question I have for you is like, how come you don't want to teach literature in your like on your own? Like, why is it that you want to do a little shift and teach more about like, you know?
Well, I think as I've gotten older, I feel like my calling is different. I don't think it was my calling to teach people how to write an essay or to teach them how to analyze a short story. I don't think that serves the wider, greater good as much as what I feel called to do now, which is helping people to
Hmm.
explore themselves. And
Got
ultimately,
it.
where I want to go with it is so that they can heal themselves, so that they can be better people, so that they can then have that butterfly effect where it goes, out to
Got it.
society.
Where do you think that came from? Is that from a
Oh,
personal experience? Is it?
yeah, it came from losing my mom. My mom died when in 2001. So it's been a long, long time, but I never really dealt with it at the time. And as I've gotten older and gone back and looked at my life, I've been able to see things that I couldn't see then. And I think this happens to everyone, where at some point you have an epiphany about your life, like what it means, what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to be, and what your message is supposed to be. And that's kind of what happened to me. I would call it a spiritual awakening
Got it.
and a
And
self-discovery
since
kind of
then,
thing.
have you worked with anyone? Like, like have you actually tried to do any of that, like with either
I've been
students
doing
or?
it. Well, I've been doing it through the podcast for
Okay.
now. And that's why I want to take it a step further. So every time I do a podcast with someone, they tell me something like, oh my gosh, I never looked at it that way. Or looking at
Mm,
their life and thinking, wow, I didn't realize until we started talking about this that this is why I'm like this. Or wow, I never
mm,
told anybody that before,
mm.
things like that. And then they'll think about it, and days later they'll send me an email that says, wow, I'm so grateful that you brought this up, that I was able to see this pattern or solve this problem. So
Oh,
I
got
want to
it.
do more of that.
And how do they find you? These people.
It's kind of interesting. At first, I went out after people that I just knew online or friends when I first started out, but then the ball got rolling. And I have actually had people that I don't even know come out of the blue and reach out to me online on Instagram. I had a couple of very prominent people with, like, one guy had over 150,000 followers. He's in recovery, and he just reached out to me out of the blue and was on my podcast. So I think
Okay.
that it has a lot to do with your mindset. When you kind of you're open to that, things do tend to come your way. And so that's how it's working right
And
now.
they're finding you because they listen to your podcast, or do you also
Or
like
they'll
use that
search.
in your social media?
Yeah, I use my social media to promote. And then I have other people promote that are my guests. So it does expand the reach that way. But I've been using some hashtags, and one of the guys found me with hashtags because he was searching for podcasters to tell a story.
Okay.
And then someone else that I didn't know found me because it was like a friend of a friend. So the more people you connect with
Okay.
online, other people do see that. Like it'll come
Yeah.
up into their feed. So all
Yeah.
of those things to really work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the more you put yourself out there, the more likely you're gonna get found.
Yes.
Okay. So, what are your questions?
Well, I am at the point where I am ready to really go for it. And I want to make it like a movement, I think ultimately. But from a more practical standpoint, I want this to be the way that I make a living. And right now it's not. So I want to know
So
some
you haven't
practical.
got you haven't
No,
done any paid coaching yet.
nope, I
Okay.
haven't. And I'm in the
Are
process of
people asking you
setting.
for it?
Yes. And I've got some people asking me to do workshops. I've got that kind of thing happening as well. So I want to set up some programming so that I can have a container for people to pay me. And I don't have
Got
that.
it. So what's stopping you from doing that?
Well, there's a huge mindset piece. I think because my whole life, I'm sure people can relate to this, I have always gotten a paycheck from someone else. And if I think about working for a university where people pay thousands of dollars for this course, so a student might pay $3,000 to $5,000 to be in my class, but I don't get that money from every student,
Hmm.
but that's what they pay. And for whatever reason, I'm having trouble getting over the hump of charging people to directly pay me rather than going through a university or through a school of some sort or through a program that's, I'm working under the auspices of someone else. So that's definitely a mental hump I have to get over.
Got it. So it's not like, because there's also like this stigma of like people in the self-help industry or something like that, where because they feel like they're supposed to be helping people, and they're like, oh, like I don't want to charge money. Like I feel kind of
Yeah.
hypocritical about
Oh,
charging money,
yeah.
but
I think
that's
that's a
not.
part of it too. And then there's the idea of, well, what am I worth? What's it worth? How much is it worth to discover something about yourself in order to prevent disease down the road or to reduce your stress or to change your life in some way? If I can help you to see that, how much is that worth?
Got
I
it.
have no, I have
I
no
mean,
idea.
so I think those are two completely separate things. So there are people who feel like they should be like Buddha, and they should or Jesus, like I shouldn't be charging money for this. That's a completely different thing um like the other imposter syndrome one, right? Where like,
Yeah.
why would anybody pay me for this? Or like or what how can I, like I'm not worth that much or something like that, right? I mean, that's how I was when I first started like freelancing. I was like, this is stuff that I do every day, right? Like I
Yeah.
do for my friends and things like that. Like I can't, like, why would anyone pay me for this, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
I definitely feel that. And also the things that I was teaching at college were practical things. They were, step by step, how do I write an essay? And so doing something a little more esoteric where I'm wanting to reach someone at a deeper level, something that's more profound, but harder to put into
mhm,
words, that's
mhm.
part of it too.
I guess okay. I want to talk about the whole giving part first. I don't know if this is like, just from hearing you, I don't think this is a big part of it. The fact that like I should be giving my time, I should be serving others, not making money from. I don't think that's it. But just for people that are out there that are like that, I just talked about this with a couple of our members.
Hmm.
Um, it's the reason why I have Night Owl Nation and Night Owl, right?
Yeah.
And eventually I'm going to have retreats. I'm going to have more high ticket programs. I'm going to have masterminds where I charge a shitload of money to the people who can afford it, right?
Yeah.
But I draw a clear line between, okay, here's the product that I have where I'm helping people, right? This is $5 a month. Like I'm giving way more than what I'm getting, what they're paying, and I'm providing value, right? And then here's my agency where we charge $60,000, $100,000 for websites. I'm going to have a mastermind that is like $10,000, $15,000, right? I'm going to have retreats that are like thousands of dollars. So this is what's paying the bills, right? And they're two completely different audience. Yes, here are the people who needs help, but there's also these like Upper East Side moms who drives a Porsche who can very well afford this, and they want more, personal, like they're more lazy, so they don't want to do the work, so they just want it spoon fed to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So but I don't feel guilty at all charging these people because like I remember one of my clients who does this kind of like work where he's helping people. Like he says that I don't do this for money. I need money to do this, right?
Mm.
So that's kind of how I think of it. Like, like Rob, who's one of our members, he was
Mm-hmm.
talking about, a couple of the members were talking about how when they raise money for nonprofit or charity, they're so good at raising money for charity, but they just can't raise money for themselves, right? But
Yeah.
that's what this really is. I think of this as like, I need to raise money
Yeah.
so I can help these people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I just draw a clear line between the product, or like my podcast is where I help people, right? Like, so there's these areas where I can help people, but the only way I can do this, someone needs to fund this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the only
Mm-hmm.
way I can do this is through capitalism, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
feel guilty at all. Yeah.
Right. No,
So I
I
think,
feel that. I
yeah.
believe that. Like I can relate to that, and it's definitely along the lines of what I want to try to build. What
Okay.
you're
Yeah.
saying.
So now then let's talk about the imposter syndrome side.
Mm.
For me, I guess that everyone's going to give different uh, like advice on this, right? So I've heard people say, just go ahead and charge this much, right? I don't believe that, because I
Mm.
also see a lot of people who just went ahead and created a $5,000 course, and I go look at the course and like, are you kidding me? Like, this is not worth $5,000. Like, you're not helping anybody, and you know what I mean. It's just that you
Yes.
you were able to scam people into buying your course, but
Yeah.
you're not actually helping anyone, right? So I've seen cases like that, but I also seen cases where, uh, people just say, "Oh, just double your price," or just like like just charge high ticket, and they start doing it, and then because they did it because of the pressure of all the coaches and everybody selling them, but because they themselves don't believe in it, that it doesn't work out. It comes off like the way they sell it is not as confident. The way they work with the clients and the clients and students can smell that shit mile away, and it actually ends up hurting them, right?
Yeah.
So what I did with my agency is I started incrementally raising prices. So you can always raise prices, but it's much harder to go down in price.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yep.
So what happens is, let's say you're like doing a coach. Let's say you're doing one-on-one coaching, and
Mm-hmm.
at a low price, right? And you do, like, let's say you're doing it for $100 or something like that, and then you do that long enough. What happens is you start to see, it's like, oh shit, look, all the value that I'm providing, all the validation that I'm getting, all the results that I'm seeing, and then like I'm so busy right now because so many people are, like, that almost gives you a confirmation that says, oh, I should be charging $200,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then once you charge $200 and you still see it, and you're like, that's a confirmation that, oh, I should be charging $400. And then when you charge $400 and you still see it, that's a confirmation that you should be charging $800, and so on and so on and so on, right?
Right.
So I think you have to level up like that. I don't think
Yeah.
you can just go like, phew, charge like
Yeah.
this crazy amount that you don't believe that you're worth or something like that. But even if you are worth that much, if your belief is down here, you have to build up that belief. In my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I
Mm-hmm.
did it.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yeah.
happens quickly.
Okay. Good.
Because
Good.
for me, it took me a year to go from basically charging like $10,000 to like $50,000 for websites.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just kept going up and up and up and up and up. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good way to start. And so you always talk about the difference between having a course that works and a course that nobody is going to actually get value from. So I wondered if you could talk a little
Mm-hmm.
bit about that. What's the difference? What do you have to do in a course to make it worthwhile? Because I've done the same thing. I've taken recently courses where I've paid a lot of money, and then once I've taken the course, I'm like, oh, this is not worth the money I spent for this course.
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of things going on there. So what I see is like, for example, if I look at some of the courses that I've taken, like when I've taken like B School or
Yep.
like DCA from Amy Porterfield or Story Brand, right? So when I look at those things, like the reason why B School was worthless for me was because I already knew all of that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're a brand new, you don't know anything about business and you don't know anything about online marketing and you're just getting started and you don't have time to spend a year just scouring the internet like 5 hours a day, like learning all this, which you can
Yeah.
do. Like with B School is kind of like a shortcut version of that, right? Like they made it step by step and it's a good program for that. But my problem comes when they oversell it because Marie Forleo sells it as if this will help anyone, right?
Right.
But the
I
thing
took
is,
B
yeah, there's
school
a
too.
small. Oh, you
Yeah,
did okay.
I
Yeah,
took
so
B
there's a
school.
small market of people who are just starting out that I think who doesn't even know what a lead magnet is, who
Hmm.
doesn't even know how newsletters work, right? Who doesn't know what the difference between a sales page and a website is, right? For those people, I think it's really helpful, right? But if
Hmm.
you're gonna say like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter like where you are in your business, it can help you and blah blah blah. Like it's just not true. And I think
Hmm.
majority of the people, when you're overselling the shit out of a course like that, I think what happens is you're gonna attract a lot of people where and that's why I think some of these courses I find it useless. Like I wish that she would have said in the sales page that if you already are doing this is going to be useless for you, then I
Yeah.
wouldn't have bought it, right? You
Right.
know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and same thing with Amy Porterfield, right? Like, if she said, okay, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to learn how to make a good course, meaning how to
Yeah.
actually create a good course. But like 90% of her course was all about how to sell a course, which I already knew how to do. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I feel like I was kind of a little bit um, maybe it was misadvertised or something like that,
Hmm.
right? So that's
Hmm.
where I have that's one problem I
Hmm.
have. The second problem I have is I see also course creators. These are not like those kind of courses, but course creator that sells maybe $200 courses, a little bit lower end. But I've seen people do this with $3,000, $5,000 courses too, where they literally, at least Marie Forleo and Amy Porterfield, they've spent years to polish their course, tweak it,
Hmm.
make it better. Oh, this isn't working. So listen to their students, and it's a years of work to get it there so that it can provide a transformation for some people. But I also see people who's never made a course before, who just knows how to do something, and quickly spend 2 weeks putting together a course and be like, here, I'll start selling it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just not going to work because there's a difference between you knowing something and you're a teacher, so obviously,
Yeah.
and then how to transfer that knowledge to the students, right? They're like
Hmm.
that's like a skill of its own, and
Hmm.
it has to be done in certain order. It has to be done with
Right.
exercises, and like there
Yeah.
are certain things that needs to be done in order to deliver that right. And they're not doing any of them. They're like, oh, this is a quick way to monetize my audience.
Yeah. And
A
sometimes they
million
have
dollar
just,
launch.
yeah, no. And I think sometimes they'll have like flashy videos. Everything looks very professionally produced, but the substance isn't there. That's what I've gotten.
Yeah, that's
And
what they think is the value. the
Right.
quality of the video, the set, the
Right.
design.
Right. And I don't like if I'm teaching a college course, I could deliver a really killer course, but I am not going to have those bells and whistles as much as someone like Marie Forleo is going to have.
Yeah. Let me tell you this, like the best copywriting course that the best copywriting lesson that I've gotten it's called the Gary Halbert letters, and it's
Mm.
free online. And when
Oh,
you look at it, it looks like a website from the 90s. It literally looks like shit, right? and and yeah, so it doesn't, like, if the content is good, it doesn't matter what the packaging is, really.
okay. Well, that makes me feel
So
great. That's very good advice. So I have definitely got a course in my mind that's something I want to do. And I've also been thinking really strongly about a membership. So I know that you said that having a membership is really hard to get started. Can you talk a little bit about having a membership, what that's like, and how to get started, if
well,
it's
let's
worth
start
it?
from your course first.
Okay.
So whenever we create a product, I think we need to be hyper specific on what this product is delivering. That's what I didn't do with Night Owl Nation, and that's kind of like I'm in the process of doing that now. It's weird because I tell all my clients, like, you should do this, you should be hyper specific, you should have exact goal, you should niche down and blah blah blah. But when it's come to yourself, it's hard to do it because it's hard to kill your own darlings. I feel like, oh no, but they need to know this too, they need to know that too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think you have to be hyper specific in what is it that you're delivering. Like, okay, when I start the course, I'm here, and when I finish the course, that person is now here. And what is
Yeah.
that? Like, what is that thing that they're getting right first?
Yeah.
And,
You want me to say
yeah,
what it is? Well,
sure. If
the
you know already,
course.
yeah.
Well, I do kind of know, and it's interesting because it's around the same lines or along the same lines as the curriculum that I've used for writing, except that it's for personal development. So it's going to be a course that takes you through a little bit of mindset, a little bit of philosophy, and then asks you to build out your life story on a timeline and to be able to connect the dots to see what kinds of patterns keep coming through, what kinds of themes keep coming through. And you can't do that until you actually lay it all out, which hardly anyone ever does. And then when you begin to be able to do that and really take an honest look at things, revelations start happening and you start to have these epiphanies and it changes your whole life. But my whole philosophy around it has to do with using Bloom's taxonomy, which is the levels of thinking, and how you can take things from examining them to analyzing them. And then at the top of Bloom's taxonomy, the highest level of thinking is how you have to create something new. So like when you're looking at your life story, you can analyze it and understand it, and all of that is great, and it does help you. But if you don't do something new from it or create someone new from it, nothing will ever change. The same patterns will come back. The same universe will keep showing you the same lessons over and over again. So that's the course, to be able to go through that, build it out, recognize the patterns, connect the dots, have the epiphanies, change yourself at the end. So at the end, you'll know,
And so
what do I have to do differently?
is that what you do on your podcast right now with individuals?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
I
I
don't
think the
take it to
next,
that transformational level with them. It's not like a therapy session or anything like that. It's just going through, it's just sort of the basics of going through their story. And people can extrapolate from that the lessons and the blessings from their life that they could relate to in their own lives. That's the
got it.
podcast.
So how long is this process going to take for
I think
for
it's
you
going to
to
take 12 weeks. Oh, for me or for the people?
for the students? Yeah.
The students, I've designed it as a 12-week process. And I have it so that you could do it as
Got
a
it.
self-guided course, or you could work one-on-one with me to do it with you, which
Got it.
might help tremendously if you have trouble, doing this on your own.
So what I would first do is um I would suggest you do this entire process one-on-one with somebody first.
Okay.
Like, because if you can't deliver a result for one person, you can't deliver a result for 1,000 people, right?
Right. But it's
So
not. It's
first,
even not even a matter of like me delivering the result. It has to be the person who finds it for themselves too. So I don't know if that's important with what you're going to say.
I know, but you're facilitating that
Yeah.
process, right?
Yeah.
So if that person goes through your entire process and no change happens out of that, even though they
Right.
follow that entire process, that means there's something in your process that's not working that needs to be fixed. Like,
Right.
here's a good example, right? I've been teaching this storytelling basics class every week, every Tuesday to new members every week. And what happened was, first it started out by me just trying to accumulate everything that I taught in the past into 1 hour course, and I taught it again. It's the same course over and over, and every time it gets a little better. It gets tweaked. I take out the things I don't need, and I see what works, what doesn't work, and then it's gotten so much better. And it's because when I teach it, I do a Q&A right afterwards.
Mm.
And just based on those questions that students are asking, I'm like, okay, this person didn't, like, these people didn't understand this part at all. So next week I do it, I tweak that part a little bit. And then now they understood it, but they ask a different question. Or
Yeah.
I see the reaction. They're like, oh, that part was so good. Like, oh, I never like thought about this part, but that's like, that was so helpful. So just through that feedback loop, what I'm able to do is I'm able to improve that class. And now it's at a place where it's so polished that I'm going to stop doing it live. I'm going to package it up and I'm going to sell it. Do you understand what I
Mm.
mean?
Yes.
So one of the best advice I got for creating a course, which I just kind of, I proved it for myself by doing the storytelling basics course, is teach your class live and don't
Mm.
set a 12-week curriculum. You have no idea. This is a brand new thing you're teaching. You have no
Yeah.
idea how that like somebody might just go through the whole thing and nothing happens, or somebody might get stuck in week 3 or week 4. You just don't know.
Yeah.
So be open-minded. Get students in and say, "Hey, this is my experience. This is my background, and all of that. I'm doing this at like what they call this, like the founders. I
Right.
forgot what it's called, but they're basically in your beta program, just like kind of Night Owl Nation. Everybody in Night Owl Nation right now is in a beta program because our Night Owl Nation is not perfectly polished yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're
Yeah.
almost like the guinea pig. So you give them a discount, and then you get them in, and first week you teach this, right?
Right.
And then you do a live Q&A or something like that. So they're going to ask you all these questions. They're like, oh, I didn't figure out how to do this. I got stuck here, blah, 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 all those things, right? Now you adjust that in the next week, right? And
Right.
then based on their feedback, then you design your next week. And then you design your next week. And then I think once you've done that once, you're going to get a good feel for, okay, what works. And then next time you do it again, you're going to learn that a little bit more. And then you might have to run this program live for a year before
Mm-hmm.
you get to a point where, like, okay, now I have a solid program that works, that delivers result every time. And as long as somebody goes through this process, it's going to work.
Mm.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Then you can charge whatever you want for the transformation that people are willing to pay at that point, because now you have a solid product that actually works.
Right. Yeah. I love that idea. That would that would
Like,
be
I
a
see
great
so
way
many
of
people creating
starting.
a course when they have never even like coached. Like, for example,
Mm.
somebody might try to create an English course, right? On
Mm.
how to, just because they're good in English, they're like, oh, I can teach an English course. But the thing is, they've never actually taught English to one student before,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you teach somebody, like somebody told me, like that, the best way to learn something is to teach it. Because you like, I watch Cosmos, right, with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I'm like, oh wow, this is so, like, I learned so much, and I try to go explain that to somebody else, and they're like, I get stuck. And then somebody asks me a question, and I'm like, that's a good question. I don't know. Like, once you actually start teaching it,
Yeah.
you get to, you see all of your flaws and what part you don't really understand. Or,
Mm-hmm.
okay, just because I understood this doesn't mean this person understood it, because they're not a native English speaker. So I need to somehow figure out how to get this person to understand it. And that's how,
Mm.
when you go skiing for the first time, the first thing they teach you is pizza French fries, right? I don't know if you ever
Yes.
went skiing,
Yes.
and they say, like, French fries like this is to
Yeah.
go straight, go to go, and then you do pizza like this. You put your skis like that in order to stop, right? And then you go again, and then stop, go, stop, right? Imagine like you were trying to teach somebody how to ride a ski, and you didn't have that concept.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's going to be harder for you to teach them, right? Like to actually explain to them and show them like blah blah blah. But somebody came up with that pizza French fry concept, so that somebody can quickly get over their hurdle or something like that, right? So, and that's kind of what it is. Like just because you know how to ski doesn't mean you can just teach somebody how to ski right away, unless you have those tools, right?
Yeah.
So that's why, like,
point.
So many people try to teach their spouse how to drive, and they just get into an argument. They can't teach them because it's one thing to know how to drive, and it's another thing to. Here's another example. It's one thing to know how to drive, and it's another thing to actually teach somebody how to drive. Like, because you're like, why can't you figure that? Why are you doing that? Like, why are you going so fast here? Or why are you turning so sharp here? Like, because they don't know, right? Like, another thing is like, we all know how to tie our shoes, but if we were to imagine you trying to teach somebody how to tie their shoes without showing them using verbally, like how hard that's gonna be, right?
Right.
But then people who teach that, like maybe like I don't know, a parent who teaches that or whatever, like teacher who teaches that, like will know exactly what to say. They're gonna know exactly if I say this, then most people are gonna get it. But if I say like this, most people are not gonna get it. And that just comes from the experience of teaching. I don't have to tell you that because you're a teacher.
No, it's so true. No, I can tell you, my boyfriend tried to teach me how to ride a motorcycle, and I ended up breaking my collarbone. And he's the best, most excellent motorcycle driver that you could ever, like, he's super, super diligent, very cautious, but he could not teach me as well as he does it himself. So I totally get what you're saying.
And that's what I've been learning in the past year. Like, things that come natural and easy to me, I realize that most people don't get it. So I had to figure out, I had to throw a lot of things on the wall, and then try to figure out, okay, I wonder why. That's why I do so many of these hot seats and Q&A.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing this hot seats to just because I'm a nice guy. I'm doing it because it helps me.
But you're also a very analytical. You have such a unique way of looking at things, and I think part of that is because you are so open to all the possibilities, and you're so devoted to wanting people to learn what you have to share. And I think that's really admirable and interesting too, because then it brings you to the question of what's the responsibility of the learner in their own transformation versus the teacher in that transformation. What do you think?
That's a good question. What do you think? Because that's
a very
the learner has to
be invested. I mean, the learner, you cannot have transformation for I can't force your transformation. Like, you have to participate in your own transformation. And just from being a professor for so long, you can see when a person is invested in their own transformation, their own learning. They want, I see what you mean. Yeah. And when they're not, but then again, I've also, as a teacher, I've also had the mindset of, well, I'm doing something wrong if they're not learning it. I have to figure out how to reach this person that I haven't been able to reach. So it's always like a give and take, I think. And it's always about,
I think that's the problem with the current education system, is that, it's such an old system, first of all, right? Like, this whole bachelor system has been around for like hundreds of years. Now, the only incentive that students have to go to that class is because they're going to get a degree, and it's going to help them get a job, right? So it's almost like like, most students are not going like, oh, I can't wait to go to class and learn today. They're not doing that, right? They're like, oh fuck, I don't want to go to class, but I have to, because then if I miss this class, I'm not gonna get this grade. And right, it's literally the incentive for them for learning, and what they're actually learning is completely detached from each other. And I think that's why schools, what they're actually teaching you is they're teaching you that first step of the Bloom's taxonomy, memorization, right? Yeah. They're just teaching you memorization and how to be great test takers. That's all they're teaching you,
how to figure out what the teacher wants you to do and do that.
yeah, how to like manipulate the system
Yeah.
or whatever, right?
How to play the
But they're
game.
not actually teaching you, yeah, how to play the game, how to play politics or whatever, yeah.
Right.
But they're not necessarily teaching you critical thinking and things like that, right? But
No,
then,
I mean,
so I look at it,
some people are, but not enough people are.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's at the individual teacher level, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I think. I think it's the teachers. I think the teacher's job is not there to deliver information, because then you can just record a video that delivers the same information.
Right.
But I really think of what a real teacher's job is to inspire the student to want to learn something. Like for
Yeah.
me, the best teachers that I've ever had were the ones that made me want to learn that subject. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
my humanities
Mm-hmm.
teacher took us all to like the Met Museum and like this cathedral, and it was like it was such an amazing experience for me, right? Like things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so with the online course, the way I look at it is like, this is just my personal opinion, but it's like a gym versus CrossFit or Soul Cycle or Barry's Bootcamp, right? Like, yes, I can hire a trainer or I can, sign up for a gym. I'm never gonna go, right? Unless
Mm-hmm.
it's like a school where I need to go and I need to in order to get my degree, so I can force myself to go and but I'm not really actually learning anything, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I think most people just sign up for a gym, and like 90% of people don't go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus like Soul Cycle has somehow created this program where
Mm-hmm.
people want to go work out.
Yeah.
Like CrossFit has created this program where it makes people want to go work out, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to do at Night Owl Nation. I'm trying to create a curriculum where people want to go practice storytelling, not
Mm-hmm.
because they bought a course and I'm trying to finish. Because I think that's the problem with the online courses that's teaching storytelling, is it's just another means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why people buy it and they don't really finish it, and like try to
Yeah.
apply it, it doesn't work and they give up. It's kind of like when you try to ride a bicycle first and you keep falling, and you're like, oh, this doesn't work, I give up, right? Rather than keep trying.
Right.
So that's kind of how I look at education. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, at some point when it becomes self-directed, that's when people kind of fall off the wagon. It's almost like doing B school as that example. You can go through the whole course and learn all of the different things you need to do to build a business, but then you just don't do them. And then if you get
Yeah,
somebody
I see what you mean.
who could kind of be with you as you're doing it, like if I'm learning to ride a bike, my dad was there holding the back, running alongside until I got the hang of it, and then I could keep doing it myself. But if I couldn't get it, I wouldn't keep going out there and falling off the bike all by myself. I'd probably just go back in the house. So I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe there's something about that when it becomes
There has to
self-directed.
be an intrinsic motivation
Right.
for them to want to actually go. Like, yes, somebody might say, okay, B school might say, like, okay, now go post content every day, like send out an email every week, right? So now you have the information. Now you know what to do.
Right.
The question is, are you actually going to do it, right? Like,
Yeah.
some trainer might be like, okay, I want you to eat like this every day, and then go to the gym every day and do this. Like, okay, now I have the information. The
Mm-hmm.
question is, am I actually going to do it, right?
There has to be some sort of
And
checks and balances, and like almost like a real
or I
human
think,
element.
or either that or like a intrinsic motivation. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want to go do it because it's fun.
Right. Right.
Like I actually enjoy it or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's where I think kind of education has to move in the future.
Mm.
Where for me, I hate learning, like I hated my history class when I was in high school.
Mm.
But now I actually like go out of my way to watch the History Channel to learn certain things, right?
Yeah.
It's because back then I just didn't have any motivation. I didn't care at all. But now
Right.
I'm actually interested, right,
Yeah.
on certain things. So so
That's
how do we
true.
get them from here to here? Like that's kind of the
Yeah. I can't even begin to articulate all the problems with our education system. It's very messed up from the get-go, like way before they get to college.
yeah.
Um,
So the next quarter at Night Owl Nation, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it more gamified, so that every week, I'm going to give them a prompt which they're gonna work on, and they're gonna post on Instagram, and then like the small group members are gonna all like give their feedback,
Mm-hmm.
and then so they get an immediate like kind of instant gratification every week, and
Yeah.
compare their content with last week and see, okay, I made this much improvement,
Right.
like
Well, the great
things
thing
like
about
that.
Night Owl Nation, first of all, the cost being so, like, you are the king of over delivering. I've never seen anyone who gives so much value. You're the king. You should be wearing a crown right now. Uh, and it's been so valuable. But I think when you do the Sunday service, we get so much great information. You give the assignment, and then if you're in a small group, you have to do the assignment. So for me, that's been very beneficial. If I wasn't in a small group, it would be up to me whether or not I'm going to do the
That's true.
assignment. So that's a good feedback mechanism. And that's
Maybe
also a
it's
good
like
motivator. It's like a peer
yeah,
pressure.
so maybe
It's
you
peer
need a
pressure.
little like you need a little bit of accountability, extrinsic motivation,
Yes.
and you need a little bit of the intrinsic motivation,
Right. You need both
because you're
because,
right, like
yep.
when you're
If I
going Soul
wasn't in a
Cycle, even
small
yes,
group, I wouldn't always do the assignments probably. I would do
exactly.
them if they were interesting to
Yeah,
me, but not always.
yeah. And the same thing happens, I think, when you go to Soul Cycle. Yes, you go there, you have your friends there, and it's a community, it's all fun, and yeah, you're like competing with the leaderboard, and it's fun. But at the same time, it is the thing that the instructor is looking right at you, calling your name, right, with their little microphone, be like, "Come on, son, you can do it!" Like
Right.
that accountability is what makes them like
Yeah.
not just give up and be lazy at that moment,
I
right?
There has to be a human piece. There has to be like another person there saying that to you, either motivating you or calling you out, one or the other, keeping you accountable. It's almost like
Mm-hmm.
for humans to do that on their own is very difficult. Very few people are purely intrinsically motivated to complete
Mm-hmm.
tasks. I guess it depends on the
So
task.
yeah, so going back to your course, what I would recommend is to kind of recruit these people of your founders club, right? So
Yeah.
these are the people that are going to be your guinea pig. They're going to pay you maybe less than the normal price,
Hmm.
but you're going to go through the 12 weeks with them, and you're going to work with them. You're going to keep that feedback loop open, so they feel like they're actually helping you design the program too, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
how Night Owl Nation. At Night Owl Nation, I'm counseling like all the small group leaders all the time. I'm always asking them, "Oh, hey, did that work?" And they give me a suggestions. It's like, "Son, how about you do it like this?" And if
Mm-hmm.
something's not working, they'll tell me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we're. It's so another great thing about that is it feels like you're not doing it alone.
Yes.
So if you're doing it like, you know how they say it's lonely at the top, if you're an entrepreneur that's trying to figure everything out yourself, nobody understands how I feel. Like none of these students get it. And then you're trying to do it yourself. It feels so lonely, and it's most likely at those like harsh moments, you're gonna quit. But then when you have like a group of people that are kind of supporting you, they're giving you ideas. That's like, oh, that didn't work. How about this? Oh, that's okay. Like if
Mm-hmm.
they're doing that with you, most likely you're gonna stick through it longer.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
But the hard part,
So maybe
well, I was going to say the hard part is getting that initial group together. It almost feels like that's kind of more like a membership that I'm saying, here's it, we're going to put together a group and do this course together or do this, this thing every week where we learn and ultimately we'll get to this transformation. But finding those
you can
people
start
to,
out like that.
yeah, I like that idea. But I think the scariest thing is, what if I don't get a group of people who want to do that? What if I can't find 10 people?
Then you find 5 people, or you find one person,
Yeah,
right? I mean, you have to start somewhere.
right.
This is what I would do if I didn't have an audience, or if I had a very small audience right now, and I want to get started. Probably the first thing I would do is I would say somebody, you know what? Like, first of all, I need to know my financial situation first, right? Like, I need to, like, if I'm going to start, the reason why at Night Owl Nation, I gave myself a year. And I said, okay, for the next year, I'm going to make $0.
Mm.
I'm actually going to lose money because I am losing money, right? Because if I was spending this time in my agency,
Yeah.
we would be making much higher profits. So I'm actually losing money by doing this, right? Because we're turning away some clients in order to do this. But I already told myself that from day one. I'm going to give myself exactly 1 year to do this. And then 1 year later, I'm going to reassess and I'm going to decide whether I'm going to just fold this or to keep going, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason why I was able to really go. Otherwise, what ends up happening is your priorities are all messed up. So you start feeling like resentful for the students. You're like
Mm-hmm.
they don't
Mm-hmm.
understand how much value I'm giving. Like the reason why I'm giving so much value and I'm giving everything for free is because I made this promise to myself, like that
Okay.
I'm gonna go all out and see what comes out of it. And then now I understand, okay, what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, which is why I'm planning to create actually like a upfront fee for Night Owl Nation. We're gonna raise the price for Night Owl Nation. I'm gonna do a mastermind group. We're gonna do some live workshops. I'm gonna
Yeah.
add on these products so that we can make more profit. But now I see that it's gonna work, right? But in
Yes.
the beginning, I don't know if you remember, but for the first 4 weeks, I just told everybody on my Instagram, be like, okay, come to this Zoom on Sundays. We'll just get together on Zoom. And we didn't have a membership or anything like that. We just got together and it just very organically happened. So if
Yeah.
I have a small audience and I was at where you are, probably the first thing I would do is I would just my mailing list and all my contacts, right? I would just send it to everyone, say, hey, I'm trying to get a group together,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to develop this kind of program that's really going to help to like, and I'll sell it like that's going to do this, and it's going to be completely free. But if anybody wants to be involved in this as like a founder thing, I would love for you to join, and then I would run it for 12 weeks, right? And the and during that, and then just and I don't even have like a set curriculum in mind. Maybe like a rough outline of what I want to teach,
Mm-hmm.
but not like like set in stone, right? And every week come in, it's like kind of like how we do your small group, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
just have this conversation and then you learn something new. And then maybe if somebody feels stuck or they're confused, maybe like that same week do another Q&A session where
Mm-hmm.
people ask you questions and you kind of answer. Oh, they're going to be like, oh, what did you mean by this? How can I do this for me? Right? Or something like that. Oh, what did you mean by this? How can I write it out for me? And
Mm-hmm.
you kind of do that, right? And the next week, based on that, you set your next week curriculum, so on and so on and so on. And by the end of the 12 weeks, you're going to have it might not be perfect, but you're going to have a much, much more clear idea of what works and what doesn't work, right?
Right.
And based on that, what I'll do is in the next 12 weeks, I'll create some sort of a rough course now that's still live, but maybe I'll charge like very low price, like $1,000 for 12 weeks or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, or even
Mm-hmm.
$500 for 12 weeks, right? And then I will try to get the people from the first 12 weeks to give me testimonials and like maybe jump on a Zoom call like I did that 1 week with the small group leaders where you know they kind of explain what the experience was like, what they were going through, what the transformation was like, and what their life looks like now and all of that.
Yeah.
And I would use that testimonial to actually enroll like maybe 10 people paying 500, like very low price, right?
Mm-hmm.
$500
Mm-hmm.
each, and then run another 12 week like that. But now
Mm-hmm.
after that 12 week, it's going to be much more, you know,
Mm-hmm.
much more elevated, right? Like, and
Right.
then you do it again. So you
And
do
then
that
that
four
could,
times, right?
yeah. And I feel like that could feed into a membership community as well.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
Once you have this 12-week program done, because I guarantee you, it's going to be easier for you to sell. It's going to be easier for you to sell $1,000 12-week program than a membership at $50 a month or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes
Mm-hmm.
no sense, right? Like what? Like this is $1,000. This is $50. Why would this? Because people are very wary of putting their credit card number and just
Mm.
people are much more careful when they make monthly subscription decisions.
Yeah.
That's why people actually prefer to just pay one lump sum upfront, like for these kind of programs,
I've even
because they
seen.
know that
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, son. I'm sorry.
yeah. And it's also kind of a commitment. It's like, oh, I got to do this forever, kind of thing where
Well,
this is a 12-week. There's an end to it, right?
yeah, that is so true. I think when you're thinking about starting a community, yeah, is it something I could do for forever? um,
That's why I'm
it's a
actually
very good
switching my
question.
model to what you just said. So we're just gonna sell the first quarter first. So
Okay.
we're gonna change our payment from monthly to quarterly first of all, and you can only join. You can't join in the middle of the quarter,
Okay.
and then the whole goal is in that first quarter. I have to show them, and I have to make them understand why you have to do it again and again and again. Just
Mm-hmm.
like, when you go to the gym, right? Or when when you whatever you're doing, you understand the importance of why you're not going to just stop, right? Or when you do
Right.
meditation, you're not going to just meditate for 3 months and then stop. Like,
Right.
they have to understand the benefits of it, so that, and that's my job, to sell it like in that first quarter, to deliver such an amazing experience that they're going to understand, oh my gosh, yeah, I need to keep doing this. And I
Right.
know that next quarter I'm going to get even better. Next quarter I'm going to get even better, better and better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we're kind of working out here feels like it's more of a hybrid model. It's something between a course and a community. It's like it's kind of both because they're getting,
Or like I said, course that
yeah,
leads to a community.
yes. I love
So
that.
courses where they come in and then you bring them to the community. And next quarter you bring in new people
Yeah,
and you add those people to the community again. And so your community will keep growing every quarter,
right.
right?
Right.
But they're there every month.
Okay.
But then this course is what's bringing them in there.
Yeah. Oh,
Because it's
okay,
hard
son.
for you to sell the value of a monthly
You just solved
membership.
my whole problem. This is the answer to my question. Thank you. I feel like this is such a good plan. I'm
Yeah,
making
and
notes in my head right now.
I went through the same thing because I thought I could just sell the membership, but number one, it's hard to sell because people don't realize the value of, why do I have to keep doing this forever, right?
Yeah.
And then like I realized that it's much harder to sell membership first, unless it's much easier to actually sell a one-time upfront fee, and then like lock them into this 3 months where they have to go through it first.
Right.
And then once they get, after the first 11 week, they're gonna be like, okay, I get it now, and then they're gonna join the membership.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a really excellent model. I love that.
Yeah. And in the meantime, keep growing your audience, right? Don't
Right.
stop. I mean, a lot of these things, if you have a great product and if you're delivering something, like, there's a lot of word of mouth that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna, even if you don't not marketing it, eventually it's gonna start growing from word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, what I would love for you to do is exactly the same thing I do. When I do Sunday service, I might take a little clip from there and post it on Instagram Reels or TikTok
Mm-hmm.
or YouTube Shorts.
Mm-hmm.
So you should do the same exact thing. You should take
Yeah.
little clips from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing that. What I'm noticing about that is I get a better response when I do something myself rather than a clip. I do post the clips, but they never really seem to do as well as when I'm doing something unique. So I don't know what's some advice about that posting and growing from
Well,
those
it
things.
depends on what clip you use.
Okay.
Because like the video, I feel like those videos have to be so direct. Like in the first 2-3 seconds, you have to say, "Hey, are you struggling with this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Are you struggling with imposter syndrome? Or are you struggling? Like, are you not able to?" Like one of the things that I told Sue in that hot seat was, the best way to sell this type of stuff is, how does the struggle that we're talking about, right? The people who need this coaching or need this program. What's something they're doing every day in life that's being affected because they're not doing this? For
Mm-hmm.
example,
Mm-hmm.
like for her, she said, like, you know like sometimes you might wake up in the morning and you feel like groggy, like you feel grouchy, and you might just lash out at your kids for no reason,
Mm-hmm.
because you're like annoyed at them. They're like all running around and you just get annoyed at them, even though like if you were in a good mood.
Yeah.
you might have like, handled it differently, right?
Right.
So talking about everyday situations like that,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
that that is hurting them, right?
Yeah.
So talk about a
Yeah.
moment like that, and then you know say, hey, are you doing this, like blah blah blah,
And
and
then
then
have the clip.
sh- sh-
So
yeah,
I could
show them a
speak
quick
first
little,
and then do a quick little
yeah,
clip and then yeah.
yeah.
Um yes,
The
and
hook is important.
I know, and I'm learning
The
so
first
much
few
more
seconds.
about that now that we're talking about that in Night Owl Nation about the process that you went through with all of the different things you have to have in order to have a sales message.
Yeah, yeah. Like, or like something like for you, it might be something like, do you ever like, do you ever get into a situation where you just want to say something but you hold yourself back, and then like the longer you wait, the longer you hold yourself back, the harder it becomes to say it, or like you need to confront this person about like your boss. The more specific, the better, right? So your
Mm-hmm,
boss
mm-hmm.
asks you to work late, or your boss asks you to come in the weekend, and you want to say no, but you hold yourself back because you don't want the confrontation. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes for you to say no. And then finally, when you say it, the boss is gonna be like, "Why didn't you say that before?"
Yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah.
are you in that situation?
No, I love that, and I'm going to start doing more of that for sure. And the way that you talk about how when you tell one story, it kind of sparks another story. So now I have all of these different stories in my mind and written down as in my story bank
Yeah.
for situations just like that. And I had one today. I had a woman on my podcast who grew up in Poland, and it was communism when she grew up when she was a little girl, and then they abolished the communism, and she was able to come here to the US, and now she's basically she's my age. But in the conversation, I was afraid to ask her a question about communism. I was afraid to say, is there anything you see happening in our country today
Oh
that
yeah.
concerns you? And I was afraid to ask her that question on camera, but I did ask her the question afterwards, and she answered it with a brilliant story. And so I told that story on my Instagram, and it's getting a really good response. But it was my fear
Oh, perfect.
of
Yeah.
not asking that question. Like, it taught the lesson that don't be afraid to ask hard questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions,
Yeah.
because somebody else might not like your
Now
question,
you have
but
another
yeah, but
piece of content that you can use
I
about
know.
not being afraid to.
Don't be afraid that. So
But here's the
exactly.
thing, like we have content ideas every single day if we just keep our eyes open. And like that
Yeah.
happens to me every day. Like, how many times I would tweet something, I would be like, oh, I have no idea what to tweet, and then I'll tweet something, and then somebody will say, oh, that's somebody will reply to that. I'm like, oh yeah, that reminds me, I can talk about this too. And then it's just there's a chain reaction that goes there. So every time you
Yeah.
do a podcast or you do a coaching session or you teach and people ask you questions, and you have this idea, oh, like I should talk about this, just write that down.
Mm-hmm.
All so you have like this never ending list of like content that you can talk about, right?
Yes,
And then all of those becomes content.
it
You know what
does.
I do actually? I write all those down, and I know that like, okay, that's it. That might be related to what I'm going to talk about on this Sunday service. That might be like, so I actually start saying it in this thing. So now it's recorded on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now I know I can take that and use it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I really love the way you think.
So
You think about things in a very unique way, and that sparks people to think about things also in a unique way. So you instigate that in people. It's a unique skill you have. It's very good.
oh, thank you. I was hoping that I would inspire people, because like that's actually the number one thing I want to do is I want people at Night Owl Nation, the first group, and this is going to probably happen to you, Dudu. The first group is going to be inspired by the way your personality, your all of that. And then once they've been with you, like now new people coming in, now you have your own kind of environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they're doing things your way. And
Mm-hmm.
then now when new people come in, they're going to see that like through somebody else, even if you're not doing it directly, through talking to somebody else, and be like, oh wow, and then so on, and that's how it spreads.
Yeah, I think that's another thing for me that's been an interesting transition, because I've gone from just being Mitzi, this person, this just regular person, to now I'm going to be Mitzi the brand. I'm doing something new. And so people who knew me before I started doing this podcast and creating this whole new business, they know me as just regular old Mitzi. But the people who've come in since then, because I've doubled my Instagram following since then, and all of those new
Oh,
people,
nice.
I know it's still not, it's still building. It's not huge, but it was doubled. So I'm super proud of that. But all those new people that came in, they don't know who the old Mitzi was. They only know the new Mitzi. And so
Mm-mm-mm.
wrapping your mind around that, who you are and your identity, and when you're leading a community of people or presenting yourself in a particular way, it's a really interesting thing to think about. It plays with your mind a
Yeah,
little
I'm
bit.
starting to realize the same thing for me too. Like I'm starting to realize just from meeting new people in this community, there are people in this community that I have way more in common with, that I relate to way more than some of my oldest friends. Like some people that I knew for a long time. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to think like, okay, maybe this was the real me. It's just that the old me was trying to fit in with this
Oh
crowd that
yeah,
I was, that was just near me, whether it was at work or friend
yeah.
group or whatever it is that I went to school with. But
Oh
those are
yeah.
like, think about it, right? Like,
It's
what
I
are the
know.
odds that people that are
It's mind blowing, because I think the more you do that, the more you let those opportunities come into your life, and the more you become as a result. And then
yeah, 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 that's
more people
exactly what
who align
happens.
with you come in, and then the more you can be, and then more people align,
Yeah,
and the more you, and it's like this constant growth
yeah,
that happens. It's very mind blowing and so
yeah.
good.
And one other thing that you should think about is, you know there at Night Owl in my agency, there were certain people that were, or there are people that are kind of drawn to me for a certain reason, and like when I'm acting differently from that, they're not really drawn to me, right? So
Mm.
there's characteristics, personality traits, and characteristics about you that people are already drawn to. Like, and I'm sure your students will tell you, right? Like, certain students are drawn to you for this reason,
Mm-hmm.
or your friends come to you for this reason.
Mm-hmm.
So try to figure out what that Mitzi special sauce is that people are drawn to,
Mm.
and you
Yeah.
want to show like Gigi, for example, Gigi. Like, everyone loves Gigi because she's so easy to talk to, and I think it's because it doesn't matter where we go to a party or whatever it is. Somebody can talk about themselves, like they love talking about themselves, right? Everybody loves talking about themselves, and
Yes.
Gigi will get so excited, and she'll be like, "Oh, really?" And like, she would actually be genuinely interested in what you have to say, right? And that's what people love about her. So they're like, she attracts a lot of people. But me, on the other hand, like, people love me because I'll just give to them. Like, if somebody like gets dumped by his girlfriend, right? Gigi will be like, don't worry. Like, I'm gonna introduce you to someone better. Like, you're way better than her. Blah 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 blah. But then I'll be the one saying, yeah, of course, it's because you're a loser because you keep doing this, and that's why she dumped you. You know what I mean? So when somebody wants to hear the truth, like, that's what they're drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like
Mm-hmm.
the brutal, honest truth. But then when somebody wants to just, like, you know, let
Yeah.
their ego out and things like that, they're like drawn to Gigi, right? So
Aw.
there's that. Everyone has that thing that they're drawn to.
Right.
Like, people are drawn to them. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. I
like,
know.
unleash that.
And then, right, just let that be, let that happen. I know. I
Yeah,
know. And that's hard for people to do. It's hard for me to do.
yeah,
I'm in the process of
yeah,
transitioning. Like, I'm changing. We're always changing all the time. But that's one of the reasons why I like you and your program so much, is because you are no bullshit. You just say it like it is, but not in a mean way. You come from a place of love and caring for other people genuinely, like that comes
yeah.
across. And also, you just have this, you have a way of looking at things that helps people to get right down to the truth, down to the nitty gritty. Like, you can distill things in a very unique way
Hmm.
that people can,
Yeah, I
understand.
also, that's one of my strength, that
Yeah.
analytical side. Like, when I was young, I used to break all the electronics around my parents would not leave any electronics around me because like if there's a radio, I would like unscrew everything and try to figure out how it works. But that's because it's like my natural like personality. So I try to do that with everything, even
I love
storytelling.
that. You're probably the kid who didn't make you got a box of Legos and you didn't make the thing on the front. You made something brand new,
No.
something more creative.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, like one of the things that might be that for you is like when you say you asked that client about the communism thing.
Yeah.
Like that might be something you're holding back
Mhm.
when maybe some people want you to ask that question.
They do,
Right.
and she
When you
did.
ask those questions. Yeah.
I know, but you know, I actually know why I was afraid because I had a personal situation with some people who kind of were trying to make me play small or keep me in a certain
Mhm.
space or didn't want me speaking out or didn't want me speaking my mind about anything that they didn't agree with. And that made me lose my confidence. I like
Yeah.
went through relationship transitions
Mhm.
over being myself. And
Yeah.
that's really hard, especially when you're an older person, you know, you're like a grown up and you're like, it's hard to believe that,
Oh yeah,
that
I
people
think
can
you
behave
told me
that
the
way.
story.
But
Yeah.
it's a blow to the self-esteem when something like that happens. And then it's hard for you to come back out and say, all right, I shrunk myself for a little
Yeah.
bit, but the more you speak up and the more you show people who you are, the more people who like you will come into your life.
Exactly. And I don't think it ever truly goes away because you know, like people tell me that all the time, like sons, you can be intimidating sometimes, right? So then what the next time I do like IG live, I like suppress myself and I'm like instead of just like
Letting it rip.
saying whatever's on my mind,
Yeah.
what I do is like, oh, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say it.
Yeah.
And then people don't like that live as much. Right?
Exactly, because the feeling isn't there. It's not as authentic. And
Yeah.
this is, you have to be authentic AF here.
So I'm just telling you that it's something that you
Yeah.
constantly have to remind yourself. Like,
Yeah.
because
I
and even those people that
know.
are like, son, you know, you can be a little bit intimidating, but then usually they'll say afterwards, like, but don't change because I love that you're like that, you know, like
Right.
something
Right.
like that. So like,
And it's for your highest good anyway in the end, because those people who aren't resonating with you anymore will fall away. And even if they were aligned with you at some time and then later on they just don't feel like they're on the same page with you
yeah,
anymore,
I
that's
might not be
okay.
them for them
Right.
all the time.
Right.
Only like once in a while, or like
Yeah.
I might be good in small doses or something like that for
Yeah.
them. Like, so it's okay. I mean, that's fine too. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just for a certain season of life and then the next season it's not the same. And that's okay. It's
Yeah.
hard to deal with
So
that, but
for
it's
you,
okay.
every time you have those questions, that should I ask this question? Maybe a test for you is like just go ahead and ask,
Just go
see what
for it.
happens.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to do from now on. I'm not holding back. I'm not holding back anymore.
Yeah.
That was
Because
really the only time I
for
did,
me,
and I regretted it.
yeah. For me, I love it when people ask me those unconventional questions.
Well, wait till you
where
get
I
on
didn't expect.
you're coming on my podcast, and I'm going to ask you
Oh
all
yeah,
kinds of unconventional questions.
it's
I
gonna be
can't
like
wait.
2 hours long, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
It's going to be so fun. You're going to have so many stories. I can't wait to hear your stories.
Do you have any other last minute questions before we wrap up this
I
episode?
feel very good about what all of the advice that you gave. I really feel good about the process that we talked about with the course, offering something and then transitioning that into a community membership. I love that. I'm really going to try to implement that. I mean, I think the biggest thing is like practically speaking, people have to be able to support themselves financially with this stuff. And like, what kind of, I don't know, like that's still
Why
hard
don't you
for
do
me.
coaching? Why don't you like so?
Yeah, I could. I don't really like. I don't like calling myself a coach. I mean, I'm an educator, so I guess I have to figure out what's my label. How do I want to be seen? What's my identity in that
Well,
capacity?
first question first. What did you mean by that? Like in terms of the financial, like
Oh, well,
meaning,
it's a
do
practical
you
thing. Like
feel?
I have to be able to make money. I have to, there's a little bit of urgency with people who are trying to get something going where they need to start, they're at a point where they really need to start making more money. And I feel like that's coming
So
up for
there's
me.
two ways to go about that.
Yeah.
So what I see is, first people start out as a 9 to 5 job, right? And then when they first become a solopreneur, they usually they sell time for money, meaning you have this many hour coaching package for how much, or I'm a freelancer that gets paid how much per hour, right? So they're selling time for money. And then eventually they create a product, because making money from products, you don't make money in the beginning. That's a long-term game, right? It's like Tesla didn't make money for the first 10 years, right? Like product is like the hardest way to make money fast, but it scales in the long run, right? Because you don't have to sell money for you're investing the hours up front, but then later on you're making the profit, right? Without spending the hours.
Right.
But usually people have to go through those steps, right? First you have to sell hours, because
you need the short-term money.
like
you need to get money now.
Yeah. So for you, it's gonna be like basically either getting a job, so that you have a you have a set amount of cash that's a cash flow that's coming in, so that you can fully invest in this product or something like that. Or secondly, you have to sell our money for our, because if you already have like a huge following and audience, then if you have the product, you can start selling it and scaling it right away. But number one, you don't have that audience, and number two, you don't even have a product yet. You still have to build a product, right?
Right.
So that's going to be an investment time. But in the meantime, maybe you can sell coaching packages, or you can sell service, right? Whether it's writing service or whatever it is. So so you separate that. It's like, okay, this is what I'm doing for money.
Right.
And this is what I'm building for the future, right?
Yeah.
But I always tell people, like, you have to have this. Otherwise, you're going to make stupid decisions over here. Like, you're going to try to monetize too early here when the product's not ready, or, something like that.
Right.
So I think you should have something where that I'm doing this. I know that I'm doing this for money. I know that I'm just, maybe you're doing ghostwriting or writing service for somebody else, or maybe you're doing you are coaching, like like, that's the thing, right? A lot of people don't like being called a coach. But just remember that you're not the label that you call yourself. Like, I don't want to be called a web designer, but I call myself a web designer like for the longest time, right? Like, I have I have a friend that the guy who teaches copywriting, right? Or he calls himself a copywriter, but like 99% of what he does has nothing to do with copywriting. It's like psychology, it's like business consulting. But the thing is, the reason why he calls himself that is because that's what people are looking for, and that's what people pay for.
Yeah.
So, I don't mind calling myself a storytelling coach. I don't mind, like, if somebody, like, actually Gary Vee says this, right? Just think about this, right? Gary Vee owns a company that does like $200 million, right? And it's a huge company, and he's an operator, and he's an entrepreneur. He's like a business operator, right? But people call him motivational speaker, right? So most of those people and his space where he has this huge 2,000 employee company, a big agency, they don't want to be called a motivational speaker. But he doesn't care. It's like, if people know me as motivational speaker and that's what's going to do it for them, then I'm going to call myself a motivational speaker.
Okay.
It's just a label.
Yeah. Okay.
I think a lot of times when people say, I don't want to be called a coach, it's their ego speaking. It's their ego of like, I don't want people to judge me or something like that.
I don't like labels.
If you were really confident in yourself.
Yeah. I think that I have to get over that. I don't like labeling myself as anything. To tell you the truth, so I have to get over.
But that's why you should feel comfortable about
I could just be
anything.
Right? That's really true.
Because deep down inside, I used to always go to parties, and whenever I introduce myself, I used to say I'm a web designer, right?
Mm.
But then the reason why I didn't feel self-conscious, like in the beginning, when I was actually a web designer, I was self-conscious about that. Like,
Mm.
I feel so small. I feel like
Mm.
people are gonna be like, my 19-year-old nephew does that from his garage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I felt so small. But once I actually became successful, and we had a, you know, pretty
Right.
successful agency, and we've had big clients and things like that, I actually had no problem calling myself a web designer, because I know deep inside I'm not, and I know that everybody's gonna
Mm.
find out that I'm not eventually.
I love that. That's a great way of thinking of it. All right, I'm gonna have to noodle on that one a bit. Yeah. Well, thank you.
So yeah, I mean, like that definitely maybe like, and it can be a great way for you to actually um, coach what you're gonna teach over here anyway, one
Right.
on one,
Right.
and
Well, I
really
definitely
get
want
that
to do that. Yeah. I mean, I
learning
have that,
experience.
and I have that. I'm making a new website, and I have that on the website, the one-to-one coaching. So it is on there. I don't label it as coaching. I think I just say work one-on-one with Mitzi or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine too. I think you don't have to say like, just get work, one on one with me, and then just explain what you
Right.
do. Like, we're gonna use storytelling, and we're gonna
Yeah.
dig into your life, and this is like
Yeah.
the whole process of, and you have to talk about like how your past experience plays into it, right? Because
Right.
you teach writing,
Yes.
which
I
is
have,
kind of like the same process.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
also have a degree in psychology. I have my master's in psychology. So I have
Oh yeah.
both the education and the psychology piece
So it actually
together.
fits perfectly.
It's perfect. Right.
You're marrying the two.
Yep. I'm marrying the
And
two.
like when you say, "Oh, it's like I used to do this, but I see that my new calling is this." I actually
Mm-hmm.
don't see the two as separate things,
Mm.
because when I once heard Jordan Peterson say, like, he has this thing called past authoring program and the future authoring
Yeah.
program, where they ask you a bunch of questions and things like that, and
I'm
he
actually
says that
taking
there's
that,
no
and I
difference.
forgot about it. I'm
Oh,
actually
really?
taking that program, and I'm kind of halfway through it, and I kind of forgot about it. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a difference between writing and thinking. Like, writing is thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
You
it
know what I
is.
mean? Because
I
when
used to
you
say that in my
and
class.
journaling, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Writing is thinking.
yeah. So that's why, like, what you're doing is you're helping them figure out themselves and map out their life and figure out what they want and all of that,
Right.
all
Right.
through the process of writing, which is thinking,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
people don't just stare at the wall and think. That's not how you
No.
think, right?
Yeah. There's definitely a writing component in there. It's for me too. It's a little bit deeper than that, because I feel like it's so important for people to understand what's in their life stories in order to ultimately prevent them from disaster, because that's kind of what happened to my mom in her story, which is why I'm like called to do this, is because she had a really terrible traumatic
Mm-hmm.
childhood, and then ended up getting sick and dying of cancer, and I believe that that's related to her childhood trauma. So I think that, of course, not everybody who has trauma is going to get sick, but if you don't investigate what's in your story, and you don't understand it, and you don't transform and transmute it into something new, you could have big problems. So I really want to help people to not suffer, and to be able to live
It's
happy
like a ticking
lives.
time bomb,
Right. It's like
like
a ticking time
that
bomb.
trauma.
Your story is a ticking time bomb, potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
Oh,
can totally see that.
yeah.
Because like every day you're suffering from this, and every day you're suffering from this, and
But you might be pushing
you
it
know, I
down inside you until it gets like, if you keep pushing something down inside of you, it's like making a little tinfoil ball. Like, you put a little tinfoil on it, and then eventually it just becomes this like hard, or like the inside of a golf
yeah,
ball, hard little thing
yeah,
that will explode.
yeah.
So,
And like I'm 100% like sold that stress actually, can like amplify your, other disease or other physical
yes.
problems, because I've seen it. I've seen so many documentaries about how, like, what stress does to your arteries, and what
Oh,
stress,
yeah.
like, you know
Well,
what I mean? And
if
if
you
you're
think,
constantly living in that state,
I know
yeah,
it really causes physical problems. Like, think about if you get stressed about something and you get a headache. That's just a small example.
Or like ulcer.
Right.
Know,
Or an
like
ulcer. And then, so why is it that we don't focus on the root causes of other diseases? I mean, some people do, but for me, that's very important. And that's really a big part of my mission going forward. Like the story element and working with people on the story will lead to that. And then that's kind of what I envision the membership community being, is more focused on healing, prevention of disease, eliminating really stressful things so they won't fester and turn
so
into something worse.
So to give you a practical tip on that, what I would do is, if I were you, I would create some sort of a coach, like a 12-week one-on-one coaching program. Let's say it's like, however, $3,000, $6,000, whatever it is. And then you have to tell yourself, like, I can serve how many people? Like, I can have 5 students at five clients at a time, or 10 clients at a time. So you have to like limit yourself on how many clients I can do one-on-one work with, right? Because obviously you don't have all the time in the world. So work out those numbers. Like, how many clients can I take on, and how much do I need to charge in order for me to be profitable? And then, like, if it's 12 weeks, then I need new client every 12 weeks. So work out that number and then figure out in a year how many clients I'm going to need. Right. And then the way you should sell it is on your content, right? In your podcast, you should always say, like, by the way, if you want to work with me and you want to learn more about this, you can go here. So constantly have the call to action to your coaching program for now, until you develop this other program. And on your Instagram stories, and even maybe TikTok or something like that. By the way, TikTok is like such a great platform for your content.
Yeah, I'm not on TikTok, and I've been contemplating whether I should go on. You think I should go on?
Yeah, you should definitely go on. I mean, until they get banned, you should try to milk everything from it, right? Like, but I mean, like, the new platforms are always going to come on. So I'm like, why not? Like, it's an extra set of eyeballs. You can just take the same content and post it there. Why not, right? But what I would do is on Instagram stories, or even on your Reels or TikTok or YouTube Shorts or whatever it is, I would say what you just talked about. Hey, is there sometimes like something that you really want to say, but you hold yourself back because, for example, like, I didn't want to ask this question because I don't want to be judged, blah, blah. Like, is there any time you do that and then say, the reason why you might be doing that is because, because some past trauma, blah, 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 blah. And if you want to know more about this, or, just DM me and ask me. So your goal is not for them to go book your call right away. Your number one goal is to get people to DM you.
Okay.
Or email you. Like, if you're sending out a newsletter, reply to this email and, let me know if you have any questions on this. Because what you want to do is you want to generate more questions from people. So same thing in Stogears. Like, hey, do you have any questions? Like, so once they start DMing you the questions, then you answer them. And most likely what's going to happen is they're going to have more questions.
And so then you say, more let's get on a call.
Yeah, exactly. And then discovery call, and then so there has to be some sort of funnel like that, and
a process.
It's a numbers game, right? Obviously.
I know this is what I have to do. These practical tips are exactly what I need. Like, I know these things, but I'm not doing them yet, and I need to focus more on doing them. It's just It's
and
just
I
like
think the only way you can do it is you have to separate the two. Like, here's my passion project, which is building this program, blah, 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 blah. And then here's treat this almost as a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
Like something you have. Like, when I first started freelancing, what I did was I came home from work and I would literally like take a shower, get changed, sit on my desk, and treat that like as another 9-to-5 job. Yeah. And I really had to do that because I kept pushing it up.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, when I'm in my 9-to-5 job, I'm like, I can sell. I can do that. But it's like harder for me when I do it for myself.
Me too. Because when you're at your agency, even though it's your agency, you're under the umbrella of the agency. And for some reason, that makes it easier I understand that. I gotta get over
Yeah,
it myself.
exactly. You know what I used to do? Somebody would ask me for a discount or something like that, or somebody say, "Can we get more of this?" And I'd be like, "No, I can't. It's our policy. Sorry, I
Right.
can't." Even though it's like my the policy
Right.
that I made.
Right. Right.
So that I think that's the beauty of having somebody like having a part like now Gigi kind of handles all of that for me,
Yeah.
so I don't have to worry about it. So that's the beauty of like having a. So maybe you can bring on somebody who like, you
Could be
know,
the bad cop.
there are people out there who are like
Right.
generate leads for you or
Oh yeah.
closes for you or like, takes care of all of that for you.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's definitely one of my next steps as well, because I'm doing it all myself now.
Yeah. Okay. I hope I've answered all of your questions.
You have. I feel really good about everything we talked about. And I think it's really great the process that you use of just sort of talking through things casually, because even though we didn't stay on specific questions the whole time, the answers come through the conversation about other things. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the beauty of what you're doing. So thank you. I feel very good about all of this, and I can't wait to
Awesome.
make some notes and plans and figure this out. And yeah, and
Yeah, I
anybody who
look forward
wants
to
to
seeing your
work on their life
journey.
story can
Yes.
contact me.
Get in touch with Mitzi.
Yeah, get in touch
She's
with
gonna help
me.
you
It's
with
really amazing. It's
writing out
really an
your story
amazing
and
process. It's not just about writing out the story. I have to find a way of making that clear, how transformational it is, and how it can prevent disease. Like, I mean, that's really the ultimate goal for me, is like, I don't want anybody else to ever have either themselves or a loved one who doesn't know how to heal from their childhood trauma. And it gets to that point where they
one thing
actually
you
get
might
sick.
want to consider also, like maybe start building now, is relationships with like companies,
Yeah.
businesses, corporations, and
Yeah.
things like that, where you can do this training for their employees.
I know. That's absolutely
That's
on
like
my radar.
another.
Yep. I'm actually
Yeah.
doing one. I'm working with a small company in my town that does, they have several rehab locations for women in crisis. And I'm going to do
Oh,
some
those are
work.
perfect.
Yeah. So I'm going to do some work with them, and I'm going to work on transitioning that into some other bigger opportunities, because they have some other affiliations. So I'm absolutely want to do that. Like, I think this would be amazing
Yeah.
in the workplace, like for a corporate workshop. I think it would be a great workshop.
If you can, like, you know how I told you to create like a 12-week coaching package?
Yep.
If you can also create a corporate package like that,
Yep.
that's where the real money is, because
Yeah.
a lot of these organizations, every year they have a budget to spend on training and things like that.
Right.
And if they don't spend it, they lose it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you might want to just like get in that network and just
I
like
definitely
go on
do.
LinkedIn and just.
I know. I'm working on that too. I'm only one woman. That's why. It's a lot.
That's fine. This is how we all start.
I know.
So
Thank
worry
you so
about
much,
it.
son. Oh my gosh. I'm really grateful for everything that you said. You have so many good nuggets and things I'm going to implement. And I appreciate your
Thank you,
time and
Mitzi.
everything you give.
And I can't wait to
I'm
go
going
on your
to
podcast.
get you on my hot seat. I can't wait.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Well, have a wonderful day. Thank you
Thanks,
so
everyone.
much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye,
Mitzi.
everybody.